I'm Bill Auten of Auten Claims Management.
I'm Chantal Roberts of CMR Consulting, and welcome to the Art of Adjusting podcast.
Today, we're going to talk about life as an insurance adjuster from the perspective of property, auto, liability, or workers' compensation adjusters. Our goal is to bring interesting topics in the world of claims adjusting to people who are working as an adjuster now and to people who are considering a career as a claims adjuster.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I am great.
Good, good. We are going to have kind of a short little session today because we're both busy. And you know what? It's going to be one of the themes that we're going to be talking about because I wanted to talk about while we're recording. No, everybody knows that we record this before it gets released. Uh, while we're recording this, Melissa is getting ready or has hit Jamaica and done a lot of damage there. So we're going to talk about, cat claims and how to handle them, but also how to take care of yourself. So we're going to be practicing a little bit what we preach because we're also going to be taking this to be a little bit shorter of a podcast. And it is going to be unfortunate that this podcast will air after CPCU's Into Risk because there is a big, I think, an hour-long session on the ethics of handling cat claims. And I think that's an excellent topic, but I didn't want to steal all of their thunder, even though people won't hear about it and won't be able to go back unless they can time travel. Do you know if that's a thing yet? I don't know if that's a thing
I,
yet.
I don't really know, but speaking of time traveling, and not to bring up really sad memories, but this is the 20th anniversary year of Hurricane Katrina striking
Yes.
New Orleans, and
Yes.
the CPCU crew is going to be in New Orleans for End to Risk this year. So, you can definitely be tested during storms and catastrophic events. And obviously, Melissa is going to test a lot of people, but Katrina tested, I can't count how many adjusters on all my fingers and toes. That it was a tough event for everyone that had to go through it. And so let's, just a solemn reminder to all of us, the storms are always out there, but taking care of yourself is really important.
Yeah, and so that kind of goes into our little teaser of what we're going to be talking about, our five conflicts, because I came up with a little thing of a category five, because that's what Melissa was, conflicts, and talk about the five conflicts that there is that an adjuster may experience in claims handling. And of course, that is going to be preparedness, pressure, compassion, loyalty, and the aftermath of all of our fun jazz. So, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about preparedness. And, originally I was thinking so many people are not prepared, but there are lots of articles about how to become prepared, not just for our insureds, but even for our adjusters. Of course, I'm always wanting the C-suite. I always have that delusion of grandeur that some C-suite is going to be listening to it and go, "Oh my God, Chantel is just brilliant, and we totally need to listen to what she's saying." And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how the ethics in our claims handling actually begins way before the storm gets here, and it's nothing that the desk adjuster necessarily can do. However, maybe the agents can do something. Agents have a lot of power, definitely the C-suites. And what I'm talking about is everybody looking at their book of business in that particular area, let's say Louisiana slash Mississippi, if we think, Katrina was going to go up in that area, and realize that, oh my gosh, I have 1 million risks in this area. I really need to staff up. And yes, you are not going to be able to hire that many adjusters and have them trained before someone hits, but maybe you need to have a whole bunch of people come over from the Washington state office or whatever, someone, and then staff up while you're
Yeah.
training those people.
It's,
So it's not just our cat claims, but we also the thing, oh goody, the iron claws here. See, the thing is that I drink tea with milk, and the Iron Claw has learned, I have actually created a monster. The Iron Claw has learned that if he waits long enough, I will give him a little saucer of milk when I get finished with my tea. So
Mhm.
he patiently awaits, and sometimes not so patiently awaits the saucer of milk. Anywho, the other thing we need to be thinking about, or the C-suites need to be thinking about, as I talk into dead air because nobody's listening to me. Oh, by the way, squirrel. I asked for 5 new subscribers on either YouTube or Spotify. I don't know about Spotify. I don't have that access. Bill has that access, but I did get 2 new subscribers on YouTube. So thank you very much, guys. Maybe I can get another 5. Woohoo! So yay! Thank you so much. Please share. Blah blah blah. Okay, squirrel. Anyway, um, we were saying, look at your risks in that area. Staff
Mhm.
up. Absolutely staff up. And it's not just, the cat adjusters that need to do that, but it's the normal, desk adjusters that need to be staffed up. And the desk adjusters, don't get me wrong, they can't do anything. They don't have any power, unfortunately. That's going to be management. But also, what you need to do is if you know that you're going to be having like a lot of cats come through, I don't know, Louisiana and Mississippi, partner with a cat firm. That's what
Yeah.
we did when I was a TPA. I had a signed contract that said you would have 100 cat adjusters ready for me at the drop of a hat as soon as I called you. And that is something that people can do as well. So,
Yeah. And I think it's just really important to talk about like the necessity of training in that like slow moving period prior to
mm,
the event because you're going to get like an influx of thousands and thousands of calls and your agents are going to be overwhelmed and so, preparing everyone, not just senior level leadership being prepared and understanding the ground situation and then making those big decisions about do we partner with this firm? Do we bring these folks in? But you get your people ready for what it's going to be like for them after one of those events. And the ethical piece of this is that you want people on the phone that can be a lifeline to folks whenever an event like this happens. And if they're not prepared to answer questions or if they're not prepared to understand the policy language and really gear up for that, then you're going to be in that situation where it's going to be ready, fire, aim all the time
yes.
in
And
that
it
event.
doesn't work that way. And as we'll talk about later, you get into lawsuits.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. The other thing that I often see, of course, is so many insureds talking about preparedness, and this is more for the agents, and I know I have a couple of agents that listen, is that so many insureds are underinsured.
Mhm.
And of course, this is a great time after Melissa went through, even though it didn't hit the US, but this is a great time to talk to your insureds, our clients and everything, and say, okay, so let's do the math. Let's pretend even a category 3, which has, I think, sustained wind damage of 100 miles per hour or something like that,
Mhm.
rips off your roof and there's a lot of rain coming in. I mean, your house is probably going to be a total loss, as well as all of your goods, your clothing, all, bedding, all of this kind of stuff. So you need to buy all of this. So let's just look at your house and say 80% of what it takes to rebuild, and you're going to be paying $54,000 out of pocket or whatever. Are you, I mean, do you have 54,000 in your back pocket? Because I sure don't. And that is going to be another way to help prepare our clients, the insureds, and maybe sell some more insurance.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think there's a really important responsibility that kind of everyone bears during this.
Yeah.
You know, insureds are always going to be most of the time underinformed about how their policy works, and that's an expectation.
Mm,
So agents walking into that conversation armed with knowledge, armed with resources, armed with the understanding of like helping people to know why it's so important to make sure that their limits are appropriate, not right before the event, but not like seconds before the event, but 6 months or a year before the event, because
exactly.
a lot of times you get in these moratoriums and before catastrophic events, and then it's going to be like cats in your face.
Or
you
cat butts in your face yet again. It's going to be a recurring theme of the art of the adjusting. I have actually created a monster. So, okay, squirrel, again, real quick. In order to keep the iron claw entertained while he's sitting up here and
Yeah,
basically to stop him from walking back and forth in front of me while I'm trying to type or do whatever I'm doing,
yeah,
I have two screens. And so on the second screen, I've pulled up YouTube's cat TV, you know, and so just shows birds chirping and squirrels, and someone has a live camera somewhere with like bird feed, blah blah blah.
yeah.
And and so he just loves it. He just sits there and is entranced and blah blah blah. So now every morning he comes and sits on my desk looking at the second screen going, "Why are we looking at legal documents?"
Where's my entertainment?
Yes. Did I not request TV to be on this thing? Okay. Meanwhile, takeaway, we should be proactive in staffing up here, talking about preparedness. We should be proactive in staffing up. We should be proactive in letting our insureds know they could be underinsured. And just telling them that doesn't mean anything. You actually need to walk through the math with them or send them a letter or send them an email, blah, blah, blah. And for our adjusters, like our desk adjusters who happen to like maybe they're not even working a cat claim or whatever, if you happen to have a underinsured insured, I always called the agent and I CC'd the agent on that letter, that settlement letter, so that the agent would know this is a great opportunity to sell to sell more insurance,
Yeah,
because really we're helping our client and that's what we're supposed to be doing.
definitely. You can't get yourself in that trap again. And we talked about this like all the time on everything that we've talked about through
Hmm.
these moments that we've shared here. But don't get yourself in the trap of just thinking about like the claims lane, because if you look at a policy, you need to be looking at that from the lens of an underwriter as well.
Hmm.
And that means training yourself to even understand that. How would you know that someone was underinsured? Well, maybe you need to go talk to your underwriting partners and say, how do you determine property valuations? And
Right.
and really understand that from your own company's perspective so that you can be that kind of mitigation person on the front end, and helping those people because that's what you're there to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the issue is, as everybody knows, we've talked about it before, speed.
Yeah.
We just don't have enough time. But it does feel like when we do have a catastrophe, everybody wants everything now. And you're getting 300 claims a day. And if you do it right, you cannot make contact with everybody that you are getting a claim for. Because like I've said, the quote unquote Chantal way, which would be the quote unquote right way, which is not necessarily, don't get me wrong, which is not necessarily the standard practice and procedure or whatever.
Yeah.
I just go a little bit overboard. It takes an hour to do everything because you're probably spending a good 30 minutes on the phone with the insured. You can't
Mhm.
necessarily do that in the middle of a cat because you're getting a good, I think I got like 100 claims a day one time. I mean, that's just what happens. And I remember when Katrina came, we literally were just answering the phone from the hours of 8 to 5. And then
Yep.
we had to do our work, like sending out letters and everything before and after. And that kind of bleeds over into like the compassion fatigue and this sort of thing. So, excuse me. So
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
and like you're juggling hundreds of claims normally. And
Yes.
some companies have like triage operations that you have like extra staffing that would take care of like first contacts and things like that for everyone. But what everyone in that chain of things happening needs to understand is what information do you need to gather on the front end of that claim so that you're not adding time to the back end of the claim and
Hmm.
have because that is exactly like I just saw like a schematic where someone talked about like that first moment that you talk with someone in a claim is so stinking crucial that if you don't get that right, that's what leads to all of the conflict and frustration and irritation by a customer throughout the process is because they've had to tell their story like 1,000 times
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
people. But if there's proper information, proper documentation, and then the person that might get that in the middle actually goes back and reviews that, then they're up to speed before they're even trying to handle things. And I know like speed versus accuracy, speed versus quality is always that argument that
Mm,
happens. And speed has become the rule
mm,
almost
mm,
anymore, claims
mm.
operations. But that justifies people cutting corners
Yes.
on the front end or in the middle or wherever they're involved in that process. And people just get that temptation. Well, I'm just going to rubber stamp this and just move it on because claim. It's a hurricane loss. It's all going to be the same. Yeah, you got to slow down, folks, at least for a moment
Yeah.
so that you can get quality information and that customer isn't sitting there feeling disillusioned and frustrated and taking all that out on you. You will reduce your own stress level just by making sure that that chain of information stays open and constant, but that it starts with a really, really good contact. Like you said, slow down. You say it takes an hour. I'm not sure every claim takes an hour,
Mm,
but a lot of them would,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And when I say takes an hour, I mean starting from review of policy to writing all of that stuff down, good claim notes of this is what the coverage is, to contacting the insured, explaining coverage, which is of the utmost importance, explaining the claims process so that they have a good timeline to do things, and then assigning the appraiser or field adjuster or you making the appointment, you going out there. But you're absolutely right. When we have 15 voicemails because we're spending that amount of time on the thing, we just don't have time to explain all of that. So it might get cut down to, oh, it's just going to be explaining coverage because that is the requirement by the Department of Insurance and the unfair claims trade practices is explaining the coverages that the insured has. Explaining the process is not. And so a lot of people let that slip. They let that slip even in normal times. And what happens? You get phone calls every 5 minutes going, what's the status of my claim? 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 And you're like, dude, the or I should say, bruh, to reach my Gen Z listeners, bruh.
Yeah.
Don't, it's not Hurricane insert name here. It was Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Ian or Hurricane Melissa. There's look to your left and look to your right. There are other people who need to do this, and I'm juggling 5 billion balls. And of course, you can't say that as an adjuster. You can, I mean, you just simply can't. But the temptation, you mentioned rubber stamping, the temptation to just like rubber stamp everything and let it go, either pay what your field appraiser has said without reviewing it, can be the issue that leads up to bad faith claims. And this is where I come in because this is how I see it. I see it at once litigation has started.
Mhm.
And what the adjuster's done is the adjuster has been so overworked. Again, not the adjuster's fault. That's management's. But on the flip side, you gotta speak up for yourself. Anyway, a whole nother podcast. Anyway, you you just rubber stamp it and you go, yeah, that looks good. And you cut a check without looking at the photographs, without looking at the estimate, without reading a report, without applying coverages. And then you send out a standardized letter that hasn't been changed. There are so many times in my expert witness career where, let's just say, loss adjustment expenses, ALE, additional living expenses, isn't an issue, but that standard 30-day letter still talks about it, and take that out, because it confuses the insured if they even read it. But you know what I'm saying? Anyway, you're going to get sued over like these sorts of things. So
So
take a breath.
this is that pressure piece that you talked about,
Mm,
I mean, it's a high stress, high pressure job. And these are the moments that matter, though.
mhm,
These
mhm.
are the moments where you got to kind of reach into your gut and say, I'm going to do it right because it's the right thing to do. And if somebody's upset with me about numbers and phone calls and all those things, pull them in and say, look at the results.
Mm, mm, mm.
Look at the file handling time. Look at the number of phone calls that came back on that particular claim file and judge the totality of the file versus the issue of I'm just going to spin it up and stamp it and say, signed, sealed, delivered. We're just going to deal with it that way versus we're actually going to get some accuracy in this process, which is what the customers want. They
Yes.
want speed. Don't get me wrong, they
Yeah.
do,
They want
but
both and they
they
want
want
the world and they wanted it
yeah,
yesterday.
yeah. But if you give them quality in that process and
Mhm.
treat them well on top of that, that will alleviate the stress off the desk that you're dealing with or off the field, the truck that you're driving around all of the time,
Yeah. Yeah. And we're talking now also about like empathy and the moral fatigue and well, let's just even talk about brain fatigue. I mean, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
because look, when there's a cat involved, you are going to be working more than 40 hours a week. I
Yeah.
know you can walk away from your desk. You're absolutely right because it stresses you out. But I wouldn't recommend it because then that's when you just do speed instead of accuracy. When the phones aren't ringing, this is when you can be more accurate. But, you know, you're facing insureds who may have lost everything. I don't know if anybody's seen any pictures from Jamaica, but it looks a lot like New Orleans did. Everything is gone. It's just flattened. It's a debris field,
Mhm.
and you're basically just taking pictures of the ground at this point. But you're balancing compassion with your contractual duty because you also have the policy language,
Yeah.
and you have to talk about, okay, so flooding isn't covered. And does the insured understand that? No, because they believe that their homeowner's policy pays for everything. And even if they have flood coverage, and flood coverage doesn't have the same benefits as homeowners. Usually it's like ACV. There's a much smaller limit involved. They may not be getting everything paid for. And explaining that is hard and it takes a toll on the adjuster. But imagine what it does to grandma who is sitting in front of her, yard going, I'm on a fixed income. So, empathy needs to be expressed not only through that communication, that written communication, which again, if you're not having this coverage be involved, take it out because it's confusing, even if they read it. Because I guarantee you, again, I've seen this where because the adjuster did not take it out, they filed suit over it, saying that they owed it even though there's notes saying, yes, I don't need it, blah, blah, blah. There was never a letter saying, I understand you don't need additional living expense. Let me know if that changes, right? There's never that. And so you not only are talking to them, but you're writing them. Communication, communication, communication.
Yeah. And I think one of the most compassionate things you can do for a customer during an event like this is show them that you care,
Mm,
show them that you understand how they're feeling, right? Because you've seen
right.
this multiple times if you've been through cat events.
Hmm.
Um, but making sure that they understand why their policy is the way that it is as well. It's
Yes.
not easy news to deliver. It's never easy to say, yeah, I'm sorry, like there's nothing here that you can do. But you also can arm yourself with the resources that that customer might be able to access that are beyond their insurance coverages.
Yes.
Help them to understand that as well. And that takes educating yourself about what those are so that the customer knows, like, I don't administer these, I don't have any control over these, but oh, by the way, I do know that these things are available to you.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and then the other piece of it is helping them to understand, and maybe right at the moment that the claim happened, it's very hard to help them to understand that. But helping them to understand that if you go out on a limb and you're paying for things that aren't covered by the policy, it actually hurts people and hurts all people
Hmm.
that are involved in the insurance pool.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I know people buy insurance because they want it paid, right? They buy the product because they want the claim paid. But helping them to understand that costs will continue to increase and premiums will continue to increase if we pay for things that are not covered by the policy. And
Right.
I say that as somebody who used to have to balance handling the flood side of a claim and then the homeowner side of the claim as well as a write your own. And when, the company I worked for was a write your own insurer. And that was hard for people. Like they were like, well, the homeowners should just cover it. I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm really sorry, it can't.
Hmm.
And oh, by the way, if you're frustrated with the coverages that are underneath your flood policy, that's not something that we control even. We're just here
Right.
to administer it and pay the claim for you.
Right.
Like we're supposed to pay it, and the government tells us how we're supposed to pay it. And that is, those are hard conversations, but helping people to understand the basis of decisions and then also understanding and recognizing that they're going through a traumatic event and their
Hmm.
brain is not working the way that it's supposed to.
Thank you. Yes,
So,
that's the compassion and the empathy right there. And we've
yeah,
talked about that before. It's a traumatic event and they're I like the fact that you're telling them to the adjusters to give the insured resources because they don't know what to do when you say no. So they're like, "Well, what's the next step?" And so we're not counselors, we can't do that, but you can say maybe you want to talk to your agent or maybe you need to look at the Department of Insurance. I'm sure that they have some next steps for people who aren't having resources enough, blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And then help them to understand, in catastrophic events, sometimes there's some government resources that are available to people. The Red
Absolutely.
Cross is there most of the time.
Mhm.
There are different types of agencies that might be able to assist them in some way. Now, it's not perfect. It's kind of a little bit of a broken system. We all know that.
Mhm.
But it's something that can help to fill some of the gap for people when they're struggling through these types of events. And those are hard. Again, like those are the things that hit an adjuster hard
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm in this conflict of loyalty, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Contract that I have to protect and the consumer that I feel really, really bad for right
Yeah,
now.
and the carrier that's paying my, that's signing my check, and I totally get it because sometimes the carriers do get it wrong. And I was talking to my students about this. We were doing a little claim scenario, and I said there are actually four people who got this answer right, and the thing is that you may be thinking that you're doing it wrong, but stand by your guns and let other people know, okay, everybody thinks this, but I really think that. And it's what your proverbial mom always said, well, if someone's jumping off a bridge, would you jump off? And I would always respond, yeah, probably because there's a good reason. And then I got grounded, but that's okay. Bygones, squirrel. Anyway, yeah, so there is this conflict because you're a human, you feel bad and you want to help people, but the policy doesn't let you. Or you've been missing your kid's baseball game for 6 weeks. You want to go see your kid's baseball game or whatever. Um, that's I even would consider that to be a thing because you got to do your job, but you also and you need to help other people. But geez, Louise, you also need to be a family person and take care of yourself as well. And so there is a lot of internal and external conflicts that you would have, and that transparency is really important.
Well, and I also think like you need leaders who are prepared to lead in these types of situations. You should always have leaders who are prepared to lead, but
Yeah.
even more in catastrophic situations because your people are going to feel that conflict. And leaders just acknowledging that realistically, like I know you feel this right now,
Mm-hmm.
but let me equip you with some things that can help you. You can come to my office and you can vent and talk about these things that you're frustrated about.
Yes.
We have contractual duties, and yes, those must be upheld with the highest ethical standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're feeling that pressure, you've got to have a leader who recognizes that in their people
Yeah.
and say, okay, we got these real world dilemmas. People are beaten down by something awful that happened. Everything has been destroyed. You feel completely helpless in that situation, other than I got a check.
Yeah, yeah, and it oftentimes takes a minute to get that check, and because especially if it's like six figures, because it has to go through three layers of management, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you're getting yelled at by the insured. Where's my money? I need my money. I would say partial payment, but that's again, or you're. But yeah, I'm sorry, interrupted. Go ahead,
Oh,
continue.
no, but the reality is there's a lot of stuff that happens during catastrophic events that can make an adjuster feel a little jaded
Mhm.
about things. And, I had my own personal experiences with a lot of looting stuff that happened after events, but then there were like stage looting events, and there's a lot of, the fraud stuff
Oh
that you
yeah.
start seeing coming in. And then you feel like, well, wait a minute, how do I believe grandma over here
Hmm.
and then the commercial business person who's staging looting losses, and maybe grandma knew them or something. And it's like you start to like jade yourself in your brain of everything is like that. And you can't have that attitude. You have
Right.
to stick with the facts when you're investigating those fraud losses. Make
Hmm.
sure that you're involved in the partners that can investigate them beyond your desk or whatever you're doing.
Yes.
But don't feel pressured by what feels like a massive amount of conflict that happens during these circumstances.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say use the tools in your tool belt, which may be the manager, your manager, to complain, or even, I cannot take this woman talking to me anymore. I'm going to yell at her if I have to talk to her one more time. You got to take the phone call or the SIU. And those are great ways to help take care of yourself in addition to, because like I said, you're probably working 16 hours a day. And that's pretty much every day. The first 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. But after that, I would say continue on because I mean, you have to until it gets down to a manageable level. But then maybe take a Sunday or Saturday off just
yeah,
for the mental health break
yeah,
because you're going to have these ongoing disputes, such as the scope disputes. the re-inspections, the litigation, which will come about 2 years later. But in the meantime, you are always arguing. It feels like it's a battle because the public adjuster says they need 15 squares and you say you need 3 squares or what have you. Or another storm has come in and they're trying to put the same loss under a different storm. Guys, I have seen this almost in every single one of my expert witness cases. Open
Mhm.
another claim, guys. That's another date of loss. And they're going to have to pay another deductible, but it's another date of loss. Anyway, uh, do the reinspection. Don't fight this. And again, one of the tools in your tool belt is an appraisal process. If you and the insured do not agree over the damages, the amount, the scope, or how much it should be to get it repaired.
The bottom line is you got to come to a decision about coverage and you got to come to a decision about damages and how much
Hmm.
that damage is. And most of the time, yeah, there are disputes about coverage, but in cat events, that's not as much,
No. Yeah.
because unless you're dealing wind versus flood, and then that just kind of has to get sorted out as the loss is adjusted on the damages.
Mhm.
But the damage is part of this, upskill yourself on your the skill set that you need to be able to write damage estimates in catastrophic events. There are different parts of the building that might be damaged and involved than your traditional water losses or your traditional, claim that you might have for hail or whatever. And there's going to be like wide ranging things that you need to understand, but also realize you don't know everything and you might be out of your depth and you might need to call in an expert, especially on those larger losses
Mhm.
that can really discern those damages for you and write a good scope or estimate. That demonstrates that you're reaching outside and saying, this is beyond us, and we know that, and we need to make sure we get it right.
Right.
And that usually helps to alleviate that problem of fighting and arguing and being, frustrated about the amount of the loss.
Hmm.
Don't use the tools that are at your disposal to be able to resolve those situations. Appraisal is not a bad thing. Now, I know
No.
it feels adversarial, but it's not a bad thing
Mm-mm.
whenever it's utilized, especially in these events, because then you're demonstrating as an insurer, we are willing to work this out,
Exactly.
and come to a resolution of the damage that these people are owed.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
absolutely, I absolutely agree. And one point that I would make is when you're doing these re-inspections, whether it be with an expert or like an engineer or a building construction person or even the public adjuster and your field appraiser or whatever, is to do the re-inspections at the same time and
Mhm.
try to come to an agreed scope so that everybody agrees, oh, instead of 50 squares and 3 squares, okay, we all agree that it's 25 squares. Now, the pricing may be different. I don't know. But at least we've got that amount. Or we can sit there and go, I think that this is covered, and the other side can go, no, I don't think it's covered for XYZ, and maybe y'all can talk it out right then and there. It's going to save you some time on the back end on at the field
Yeah.
or at the desk, excuse me.
And
Uh,
and
and
recognize, and this is just from experience, prices are going to go up during catastrophic events, folks,
yes,
because supply chain is impacted by that. And I'm going to tell you, Xactimate's a median price is what it is.
yes,
Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it's always exactly accurate. And just like digesting that into your brain that there can be fluctuation in pricing, especially in today's market. My
oh,
gosh,
yes,
there's inflationary pricing even without catastrophic events happening, because of supply chain issues. So have awareness, have cognizance, understand, that Xactimate pricing is not the Bible and the dogma. I know
hmm,
somebody said, like, somebody over there is probably going to show up at my door here in a few days and tell me,
yeah,
you're
you're wrong.
wrong. Okay.
But I
But
would.
it's a median price.
Yes, and I would say this, you're absolutely right. Everything does increase. And so if you are going back a year and a half later with someone and doing a reinspection, use the current pricing. The insured is owed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't still use the pricing from the date of loss
Yeah.
because they're owed it. Now, the issue may be, of course, and this is a whole different podcast because we're trying to keep it short today, but
Yes.
the issue may be that damage that you're writing doesn't have anything to do with the date of loss of the claim that you're working. And so now you've got coverage issues. Fine. That's again, whole different podcast. But I would also recommend you look to your mentor or you do some meditation in addition to mediation or arbitration. Go to your local claims association where you can just chew the fat with some people who actually understand what you're going through rather than your spouse.
And I mean, like, there's no shame in saying this is overwhelming to me at all, and that's why I love to give a plug for this organization anytime that I can, especially for insurance professionals. There's an organization out there called Project 55, project55.org. It's a nonprofit that was started by a couple of people who saw like trending in insurance professionals of mental health stresses and like burnout issues and all those kind of things, and they're like, what can we do about this? Well, maybe we can equip people with some tools to be able to help someone in those circumstances. They have a free training program that's mental health first responder training that you can go through that was designed by a professional, designed by a psychologist. There's no cost to this, companies, by the way, no cost, zero cost other than the time for somebody to sit through it. All right. Get your people equipped with those tools to be able to help their fellow adjusters that are around them, especially during these types of events, because those resources are really good to help people to manage through the coping and the stress of these circumstances that you're kind of forced into anytime Mother Nature decides to flare her ugly face.
Yeah, yeah, flex her muscles or be sigma or whatever. And you know, they seem to be getting bigger or more dangerous more rapidly, but there's a lot that we can do, like we said, to prepare for this, either as an independent ourselves or as a desk adjuster where I mean, it would be great if the C-suite would get more people, but we know that they're looking at the bottom line. But there's still things that we can do ourselves. So anything you'd like to add?
Just grab a hold of the power and control that you have to be able to manage that circumstance and do the things that you can do, knowing that there's a whole lot of other uncontrollable. Control the controllables is what I gotta say is like the best piece of advice
Yes.
during catastrophic events.
Yes. And on top of that, I'm going to pick it back real quick, is to let go what you can't control.
Yeah.
Stop stressing out what you can't control. So I'm actually going to say goodbye to you. Goodbye, because yes, I know it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, oh, this is your last podcast as a guest podcaster with me. So be sure to follow, not Melissa. What's your Heather? Yes, because I got Melissa on the brain. Hi, how you doing? I'm probably going to edit that out. Not really, because that's like way too much work. So be sure to follow Heather, the Insurance Rebel, on LinkedIn. And I don't know, where else are you going to be? And I know you're going to. Oh, well, after this, it's too late. But you will be speaking at two places in CBCU into risk and things.
Yeah, no, and I'm always out there in those conference environments as well. And just a quick shout out and a plug, if you're ever interested in stepping into those kind of worlds and maybe exercising and flexing some of the skill set that you have as an industry professional, hit me up. I'm always looking for opportunities to be able to pair folks with from my own organization with people who are on the front lines dealing with this kind of stuff day in and day out, because that's an opportunity for you to be able to grow as a professional as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so good news is that Bill will be back in not 2 weeks, I guess it'll be a month by the time that everybody hears this. And new episodes every Thursday on Spotify and YouTube. Please like, subscribe, comment, because it really does help the algorithm pick us up and like suggest us to random people who will like to see cat butts in my face. Yeah, so thank you, Heather, so much. And we will see you on the flip side, I guess.
Yeah.
Great. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Art of Adjusting podcast, where we talk about life as an insurance adjuster.
If you enjoyed this podcast or this episode, please give us 5 stars and a review. It does help the algorithm pick us up.
Hit that subscribe button real quick and tell all of your adjuster friends to check this out as well. For independent adjusting services, go to www.auten.claims. And for anyone interested in working as an independent liability adjuster, go to the Contact Us tab to join our roster.
In the meantime, you can contact me at theartofadjusting.com for consulting and training purposes.